crumple zones and airbags, pre-tensioners and three-point seat belts, high-strength steel and side impact door beams. These are but a few of the things that save life and limb when the unthinkable happens, and they've all been developed over the decades as car companies slowly but steadily improve their products. But engineers can't just throw a bunch of stuff at a vehicle and hope it all works. You see, everything has to be validated, which of course automakers do internally, but so does the government through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA for short. Now, we reached out to these fine folks, but they were unwilling or unable to participate in this video. So sad trombone. Now, aside from automakers and the feds, even third parties get involved, like AAA for various things, and then the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, which has been smashing up cars since 1995 and providing us with these super cool crash test videos.
We currently are running 3 frontal crashes to judge whether or not the vehicle can protect you if you have a frontal crash. We've got a side crash. We've got a roof strength test to evaluate whether or not the vehicle can protect you in a rollover crash. And we've got a test where we take the seat out of the vehicle and put it in a machine that moves the seat as if it were in a rear crash to see if the seat and head restraint can protect your neck against whiplash type injuries.
NHTSA is similar, but in the case of IIHS, after all that testing is completed, vehicles are given scores in a range of different categories, from the structure and safety cage to the driver's legs. Now, 4 different grades are possible, with good being the best. Then there's acceptable, marginal, and poor. That's the one you don't want. Now, they also evaluate crash prevention systems and even headlights, things that factor into their highest ratings. And exceptional vehicles earn either a top safety pick or a top safety pick plus rating, which is of course the best that the IIHS hands out. All of these easy to understand ratings make it a cinch for drivers to find a vehicle that meets their safety requirements. And of course, all of this work IIHS does is designed to go above and beyond what's required by law.
One of the philosophies behind our defining the crash tests that we do is that we're making sure we're addressing real-world problems not addressed by regulation or the government's NCAP testing. So in the case of the frontal crash, for instance, the government's frontal crash test, both in regulation and in NCAP, involves running the front of the vehicle into a completely flat wall. Our frontal tests involve hitting the wall sort of on the edge so that you crush part of the front of the vehicle more than the other parts. The reason we do the offset tests is because far more real-world crashes involve some degree of offset. Very few real-world crashes involve running into a completely flat wall, which is represented by the government's crash test.
IIHS testing is not only much more strenuous than what's necessary, it also evolves over time. They change it to more accurately reflect the sort of crashes that happen in the real world.
One thing that's really important is that if you design a test, people will do what they can to pass that test, right? But what it doesn't do necessarily is look at the cases that most best represent how the systems are actually used in the real world. And what we've seen in many cases is that the automakers can design the car to perform fairly well in that test, but then whenever you push it outside of that test, then the systems don't perform nearly as well.
The government's side impact crash test was developed back in the 70s and 80s, and it was based on what happens when your car's struck by a car. In the late 90s, we were looking at how the fleet was changing. We said, hey, there are a lot more SUVs and pickup trucks on the road. What happens when SUVs and pickup trucks hit your car?
Bad things. That's what happens. Cars may be safer than ever, but it's still going to hurt when a Super Duty Ford plows into the side of your Honda Fit. And this mismatch has become an issue in recent years since trucks and SUVs have become so popular, a topic we did a whole video on not that long ago. Still, organizations like IIHS are really pushing automakers to build safer vehicles, and these efforts are paying off.
What happens is the crash rates and the fatalities were steadily going down. They weren't going down because of education. They were going down because of safer vehicles.
But there's only so much the structure can do because the overwhelming amount of wrecks are the result of just one thing.
Simple answer to the question, human error. By and large, human error, 90+%. of all collisions and crashes are to do with human error.
That is a shocking statistic. Like, I knew collectively we suck at driving, but 90% of crashes are our own fault? That's nuts and depressingly simple to explain.
What happened around 2007-8 at the advent of smartphones, things changed. And they changed mostly in the United States because of distracted driving and smartphones.
Blame that little devil in your pocket or purse for causing so many wrecks. Technology is clearly responsible for a huge number of crashes, but paradoxically, silicon could also be our salvation because the best safety feature of all is avoiding a crash in the first place, and we dive into driver aids and just how beneficial they can be in our next video, so make sure you check that one out. You might even be able to watch it on your mobile device. How do I turn this thing on?